Hello and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Aoife Keane. I'm the Customer Marketing Specialist here at VisibleThread. I'm joined today by Kyle Peterson, VP of Customer Success at VisibleThread. Kyle is going to be going through how to use Discovery in VT Docs. So if you're interested in taking your VT Docs skills to the next level, this training webinar is for you. Discovery is a powerful AI feature that uses natural language processing to gather key themes from documents. It helps you to save time and ensure compliance, and we're going to show you some real-time examples. Just to let you all know, all slides and recordings will be emailed out after the webinar, but please feel free to ask us any questions in the Ask Question box, and you can engage with us with the attendee chat as well. We'll get back to any questions at the end. So before we begin today's webinar, I want to draw your attention to some recent content we believe you'll get value from. A recent blog by Keith Hendricks gives you an insight into the booming government contract industry and how businesses can use market intelligence for success. Our latest guide, Wising Up to Plain Language, the Power of Plain Language on Profits, walks you through how using plain language supports clear communication and alignment among larger organizations. Last but not least, we're excited to announce the return of Optimize 23 with a focus on the future of business writing. We'll cover business writing in plain language best practices, objective metrics, and showing value to leadership, as well as proposal writing best practices. This free one-day event is not to be missed for professional development, networking, and expert industry knowledge. You'll be able to access all of these resources now in the related free content tab on the webinar console. So finally, another great resource we are delighted to share is VT University. It's our free online learning platform with courses that provide you step-by-step guidance to master our platform in no time. So I'll hand you over to Kyle now, who will start by asking you a poll question. You'll be able to click on the slide in the console to answer. So take it away, Kyle.
Great, thank you, Aoife. So welcome to anyone. If this is your first training webinar, if you attended our first one last June, welcome back. This is all part of really a big focus here in 2023 in terms of additional assets, resources, training and education for current and potential VisibleThread users. So can't thank my colleagues on the marketing side of the house enough for organizing these. I just have to show up. I have the easy job. So to kick things off, you'll see a question on the screen to Aoife's point. Have you used Discovery before? You can click right on the screen, yes or no. And I have my assumptions, my observations here, always like to confirm them to kind of kick things off. In my opinion and in my observations, Discovery, really powerful. I don't think it's used to the extent that it should, and that's why we're talking about it here today. But I'm always curious just to see who's been in there. I do work with some really interesting user groups, and I have some great killer examples to share, but want to make sure that we're continuing to spread the message all about Discovery. Last quick thing, and then we'll go to the results here on the next slide. The other reason I'm really focused on it here today is our engineering team has put a lot of time and investment into the Discovery feature in the last, I'd say, 12 to 16 months. And so it's really come to fruition lately. So that should give people enough time to answer the yes or no question. Excellent. So I'm glad that in this case, we have an overwhelming majority have used it. That's fantastic. So to that end, please do use the Q&A box. That's my favorite part of webinars. So send those questions in. I'll get through as many of them as I can at the end of the session. But you should just be able to type it right in there, click enter, and then we'll see it and we'll go through them. So really good stuff. Now, Discovery, there's a lot you can do in there. So what we're going to do is really talk about a few examples. This is not exhaustive, but these are examples that I've seen people use to create effect. I use them. And so for those who are maybe less sure or less experienced with Discovery, this is great. If you're an experienced user, maybe you'll come across a different use case you haven't considered before. So the 5 ways that I'm going to go through it, and then during the Q&A, we can get into more examples. Looking for those common themes in RFPs, RFIs, SOWs, customer documentation, customer language. That's the key there. And then thinking about, once you generate that proposal, lining it up against that customer language. Are we being consistent? Are there troubling gaps maybe? That third typo there, that should be, scanning across resumes as well. This is a blast from our last webinar, but it's a powerful feature of Discovery. Have you created a dictionary using Discovery? Good functionality there. And then finally, some general data calls from my contracts colleagues, maybe looking at past performance, maybe looking at teaming partner capability statements. Dare I say the possibilities are endless. So let's dive into a few of these examples to start. So I'm going to share my screen here. So I'm in VisibleThread. What I'm going to start with is looking at kind of those key themes, those key ideas in a customer document. And I'm going to go into this folder here. So this is a good example. Some people might have seen it before, but I think it's powerful. So what I'll do is I'll kind of orient us to Discovery itself, and then we'll dive in. So Discovery is one of your main tabs up here on your dashboard. These are all the lenses we can apply against one or more documents in a folder. Discovery in this case is looking at multiple documents in a folder. We're lining them up side by side, kind of in the middle here, and we're getting this heat map generated automatically for us using these automatically identified themes here on the left. You don't need to know that these documents are speaking to the theme of evidence 357 times. VisibleThread identifies that, pulls it out, and sorts it by frequency. So just to get everyone's bearings, then finally, evidence. What does that mean? We give you every single iteration of evidence. So let's talk about the example, the very first one. So these PDFs that I'm unchecking, I'm kind of removing from consideration. Those are responses to this public RFI, but we're just going to kind of go back in time and assume this RFI just hit our desk and we're a police worn body camera outfit and we're looking to influence customer requirements, put our best foot forward to win any resulting procurement or buy. So I'll always preface this, please do read RFIs. I never tell people not to read. But Discovery is a great supplement or enhancement to reading in terms of, looking at key customer documentation, language itself. I can see video, of course, is appearing multiple times in a police-worn body camera effort. That makes sense. But getting into that more granular detail, even something as simple as color video. What if our cameras are only black and white? Now, maybe in 2023, that's a silly example. But that ability to get granular, especially, if it's 7 o'clock at night on a Thursday, you've got 3 RFIs on your desk, this ability to really look at this lens. And in this case, I'm using frequency as a rough proxy for importance. Not perfect, but it's a good place to start. So evidence is of course important, but derivative evidence is really interesting to me. I don't know if I would have pulled that out on my own if I'm just reading through and taking notes, but I think it's important. So I'm going to grab it. And as you may have been seeing, as I've been grabbing these themes, over on the right-hand side, VisibleThread's tracking and identifying where and how each of those selected themes is appearing. So you're not just getting the theme, you're getting the context as well. So from those 1,000 themes identified, I've narrowed the funnel down to these. And of course, you can go as deep and as detailed as you'd like, but just for the sake of time, I think these are important themes here. I want to work them into my response. So, final few things before I pivot into another example. It's a perfect segue. It's almost like I've planned it. Once you've selected these themes, over here, this export button that I'm circling with my mouse, you can export the content or the results. The results just gives you this heat map. The content, as the name implies, gives you the exact kind of verbatim snapshot of the customer documentation itself. And you can get either the entire RFI with those themes identified or only paragraphs where those themes appear. So there's no right or wrong answer. It's just how much content do I want? But the bottom line here is, once again, this supplements reviews. this supplements writing. Imagine if you could pass this off to your authors, to your SMEs. Hey guys, these are important ideas. This is where and how they're appearing. And I can give people snapshots of customer documents instead of throwing an RFP, throwing a SAL, throwing an entire RFI, maybe with just some highlights or comment bubbles calling it out. It's just a more palatable source of information that people can bring to bear when they're writing. So this is snapshots of the RFI verbatim. How are we speaking to these selected ideas? So let's now take this full circle to that next idea of, okay, I've gone through the RFI, I've found these key ideas. Now I've written my proposal draft. So I'm just going to kind of clear the slate here. All right. And then we're going to assume that I'm Axon. Kyle Peterson is a BD or capture manager, proposal manager for Axon. So I've written my draft and now I'm lining it up against this RFI. And we can use a dictionary to do this as well in concept tracking, which I'll touch on in a moment, but I do want to keep this discovery based. Even if you hadn't gone through that exercise of identifying themes, we can identify potentially troubling gaps here. Why is wire appearing 155 times in the RFI, but I don't mention it once? These seem like interesting ideas. And like I said, it's easy for me to sit here, and armchair quarterback it, but this is just another way to focus and influence your review time. It could be perfectly benign that we haven't addressed them, but we can look for these gaps and we can take action or confirm that, we're okay. The aggrieved person, the subpoenaed person, are we actually writing like we understand our customers' context, stakeholders, things like that? So this is another way we can look for gaps. And this is just a different view than if you had two documents up side by side, reading through them, maybe going through a checklist. Still valid, but it's another view we can bring to bear. So that's one way you can do it. I've seen a lot of users do this to great effect. You can also do directed searches. People I work with generally know what's important. They understand win themes, discriminators, what's worked in the past. So beyond just going down through these automatically generated ask me for a police worn body camera effort, why aren't we using the word camera system? You can also do a directed search. VisibleThread, show me how the RFI and how my response is speaking to evidence. And once again, we can look for alignment or gaps, derivative evidence, big gap there. So, and once again, we can always export this analysis or just export the heat map where we're seeing those gaps. And maybe we'll do that. Well, and I just grabbed gap, so I won't do that. But imagine, being able to filter, slice and dice, do a little bit of kind of heat mapping within Excel as well. This is where we need to focus our time. So I'm actually, Aoife, going to jump ahead a bit in terms of, and it's my party, I can do what I want. In terms of, let's just quickly create a dictionary. I know if you were on the webinar last time, you've seen this, but you can also use Discovery to automatically create dictionaries. So these are the key themes I've highlighted. I want to memorialize them in a dictionary that I can deploy within concept tracking or quality analysis. All I'm going to do here is click Save as View. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call it the webinar example, but you might call it Pursuit ABC Customer Language. And now that I've saved this view, you're essentially saving the search. You can then create dictionary from current view. You can create a concept or quality dictionary. let's go to that dictionary quickly. And this is also another plug. A lot of people have heard me say it. I'll continue to say it. You know, my best, most engaged users are creating custom dictionaries. And just in, you know, if I wasn't talking so much, in about 2 minutes, we've created a dictionary. This is customer language verbatim. And then you can bring that to bear within concept tracking. And now I'm looking at the RFI lined up against my response. And then in this case, because it's a public RFI, I'm looking at competitor responses as well. And so same idea, you're getting this heat map. We're looking at these documents side by side. I'm though going to use a different dictionary, the one that I just created. Webinar example. And so this is just a more bite-sized view. Compared to discovery, we were seeing all those themes, and we can see, we can look for alignment. Good stuff, but I'm seeing some troubling gaps. And then if we want to investigate further, we can pull these ideas out. And as always, export them and share them with reviewers, authors, etc. Excellent. So that's how discovery and concept tracking can kind of play together and interlock. So I'm going to go back to discovery, but it's important to address that and address the connection between discovery and dictionaries. So let's do just a few kind of data call examples now. So we mentioned earlier, this is where discovery is also powerful too. Quick data calls, searching across multiple documents at once using multiple ideas. A lot of my users are using discovery to look, I don't want to have to search across 20 different resumes. Let's dump them into discovery. These are all my resumes lined up, but in this case, you know, you still have these automatically identified themes, but I know exactly what I'm looking for. I'm looking for someone who has a top secret clearance. I've already narrowed the funnel. Any document that's grayed out doesn't use the word top secret, so they're out. So we're narrowing the list of documents we even have to consider. And so in this case, I'm going to check all. I want every single instance of top secret. And this is a nice quality of life feature too. You don't have to select these one by one. If you go to this ellipsis, you can check all. There we go. Okay, so I'm looking for top secret clearance. I'm also looking for, you know, quality management experience for the sake of argument. We're narrowing the funnel even further. And then maybe just for kicks, maybe a master's degree. And this is where, once again, discovery really shines. It's not just master's degree. We, you know, in this case, Cabre is pursuing a master's degree. Thank you. Helpful. Great. So, and I just did 3 themes. You know, you can keep on layering that search to your heart's content. But from, what is this, 10 or so documents, I've narrowed the search down to Carmel, Eric, Frank, and Cabre. I don't need to really address anybody else. And then, as always, you can export this. You can cite them, you know, in your key personnel volume, for example, if we're thinking about, you know, a proposal response, things like that. So, powerful stuff. And maybe Eric is the winner because he has top secret and quality management. So in this hypothetical. So resumes. Just a few more and then I'll pause. So I was a former contracts manager, same idea. Instead of looking at resumes, maybe I'm looking at executed contracts, past contracts. I don't want to have to search one contract at a time, one idea at a time. I can drop them into discovery. And I would get these questions all the time. Hey, Peterson, how many contracts are we currently operating under with warranties greater than 3 years? Or what are our indemnity obligations across these contracts? And we can see, once again, professional indemnity insurance. Important caveat and qualifier there. It's insurance coverage, not necessarily an indemnity provision like this. So, and you can continue to layer. How many contracts am I potentially on the hook for liquidated damages? Only one. But it's more than that. We can see here, it's not a commercial liquidated damages clause where, if you're every single day you're late, you owe us $1,000. In this case, it's a FAR, subcontracting plan, liquidated damages clause. Important distinction. But I don't need to open up the contract, go to page 11 and verify that. Discovery can help me do it. And I bet you're getting the point, but I'll do one more for good measure. Intellectual property. If you're anything to do with high tech, design, R&D, manufacturing, IPR provisions. Who owns things that are created? And you can grab, as always, one or more of these. Excellent. Background versus foreground. Those are important. And I'm seeing a lot more. And this is actually another angle that we haven't addressed yet. Even just density. These last two term sets here on the right, heavier density of IP clauses than the first three. Maybe that's just due to the industry that they're in, the types of contracts, but that can be helpful too. There's a lot of information here that, once again, just supplements your reading and knowledge of existing contracts. I want people to read contracts, but I don't want to have to search one at a time, one idea at a time, control finding, until I pull my hair out. Teaming partners, another classic example. I have a bunch of different teaming partners. Imagine too, if you could drop in an RFP here. Line up an RFP alongside your teaming partners' capability statements or past proposals or what have you. In this case, it's just my teaming partner capability data sheets. And, in general, and I know what I'm looking for. Maybe I'm looking for more like facilities management type efforts. Let's make sure I spell it right here, Kyle. Facilities. And this is where, once again, discovery shines. When I think facilities management, I generally think snow removal, landscaping, but also computer facilities. Great. We can find that. High security facilities management. SCIF. Information facilities. So that ability to show you every single iteration of these themes are very important. So I'm looking for that. Maybe I am looking for more of a landscaping or kind of snow removal partner. And we can see it's this guy. Excellent. I don't even need to open up the other sheets. And they also, because we've grabbed it in here, you're also seeing everything else they're doing with those bullet points. Snow removal, landscaping, floor restoration, so on and so forth. And then we'll just do, oh gosh, one more just for kicks. Yeah, maybe it's clean. And this is data cleansing. Interesting. Cool. We can grab it. And in this case, instead of sending out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 separate documents to your teaming partners, to your reviewers, to your program managers, what have you, you could just send one snapshot. And I'll export content again. And so it's all nice and buttoned up in one document for you. So in this case, earlier we were pulling things out of an RFI. In this case, each tab is its own capability statement, and we're simply going to highlight those selected themes. So this is a simpler example, but it's just another view. It's more data and analysis you can bring to bear. You can highlight it, make it easier on people. And instead of 8 attachments to an email, you could just send this one spreadsheet. And as I mentioned, each document in the folder gets its own respective tab. Cool. And then finally, and I will pause, both for your sake and for my sake, past performance. And I think you guys are getting the point, right? The mechanics, the analysis, the lens doesn't change, just the use cases and the deliverable, the desired output changes. So in this case, I'm looking at old SOWs, PWSs, contracts even. And maybe I'm looking for instances where we've delivered certain types of software, either services, deliverables, design. And you can grab one or more of these themes, and we can also look for alignment or misalignment. And we see this NAVC example is heavy on software, as is the FAA, and software development. If that's what I'm really looking for, boom, 13 times in this NAVC document. And I can grab it. Maybe I'm also looking for, ideas like sustainment. And we can see, audit, risk, and sustainment costs. It's a cost idea as opposed to, deliverable or an modernization and sustainment. Certain types of contracts, evolution, things like that. And then, oh gosh, maybe just one more. Maybe we will do, cybersecurity is always an important one. And we've narrowed the search down to just this FAA contract. And we can grab all of it. So we still need to understand the requirements we're speaking to. We still need to verify here, but instead of going one document at a time, one theme at a time, kind of literally jumping and jerking around a PDF in this case, why don't we just pull out pertinent paragraphs, have those in front of ourselves or in front, on our desk, and we can grapple with it that way. And as always, you can export this and send it to what I call VisibleThread beneficiaries. Cool. So let me pause there. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to take a look here, Aoife, just at the questions. Ideally, we have some rolling in. Cool. Yeah, this is I'll adjust both of these now. Those are good questions. So Mimi, great to see you. Thank you for joining. Can you review how you did discovery of side-by-side PDFs? Sure thing. I'll go back to that kind of RFI response example just quickly. So the key there, Mimi, is you want the documents that you want to line up side by side, you want them in the same folder. So here's my RFI, and in this case, I'm Axon. I have other documents in the folder. I'm just removing them from consideration for right now. There's no reason you couldn't just have 2 documents in their own folder, but they've got to be in the same folder to line them up side by side. And then actually one kind of slick quality of life feature or logistical note to keep in mind is the order in which the documents are in. That's the order they're listed here. So the RFI is the first document in the folder, and thus it's the farthest left document. So sometimes I'll see people have it flipped, and whatever works best for you. But if you want to move Axon up, you can just click and drag. And I won't do that just for the sake of time. You can also, though, let me take these guys out again. You can also right-click docs. And if you move documents down, you'll move it down in the order. If you move it up, you'll move it up in the order. So just quick kind of logistical note there. Okay. So back to the action. The two documents I want to look at are up side by side. They're in the same document, or the same folder, excuse me. And here VisibleThread is looking at both documents. And it's saying, okay, I'm seeing video 210 times across these documents, 122 times here, 88 times in my response. But that's just video at a high level. If you expand these themes, we can look for those troubling gaps. Video recordings appears 13 times in the RFI, 0 times in my response. I'm no expert, but that strikes me as maybe something we want to investigate if we're trying to sell police-worn body cameras. Same thing here. Interestingly enough, they did have a hit on your non-vehicle mounted mobile radio video recording systems. Quite the mouthful. They used it once to the customers 3 times. So you can let these automatically identified themes guide you. Evidence, same idea. You know, at first glance, it looks like maybe we're hammering the idea of evidence home, more so than our customer. But upon further review, we can see that potentially troubling gap here. Derivative evidence, no mention, despite our customer mentioning it 12 times. So, and you can also look for just large gaps here, interception, just as a whole idea, we've never mentioned it. So that's one way you can do it. You can also do the type to search bar. You can look for gaps yourself. You know, hey guys, I'm pretty sure I mentioned data access or data storage, but let's just double check against both documents at once. I'll search for data storage. And my customer mentions it multiple times. I don't mention it. So you can also do a directed search. And you can continue to layer it. You know, where is that data going to be stored? Is it in the cloud maybe? And you know what? I would actually argue that in this case, we're good with cloud. So hopefully that answers the question, Mimi. Both documents in the same folder, and let these themes kind of help guide you. Always expand them. And then you can also do that directed search if you know exactly what you're looking for and you want to confirm or deny whether there's a gap or alignment. Cool. Good question. And actually, now that I'm on a roll, just something else for the group to think about. Where I've seen discovery used to great effect is not only does it just help, you know, one-off, use it over time. For a long, maybe strategic pursuit, why couldn't you line up an RFI, your RFI response, customer Q&A, documentation responses, proposal draft 1, proposal draft 2. You can do some really interesting analysis over time and look for changes, look for consistency in language, whether it's customer documentation or your own, when we're thinking about lining up responses against customer documentation. So hopefully that is inspiring or illuminating. Tanner, is there a size limit to the number of files or memory that can be analyzed at once? Yeah, good question. So my favorite answer, it depends. So it depends on the size of the documents, really. So for example, I work with a really interesting user group. They're in the Medicaid kind of medical space, and Medicaid contracts and RFPs, as you can imagine, are gigantic, thousands of pages. So in that case, for discovery within a folder, and that's the key. When in doubt, you can always create a new folder, but within a folder, they don't really stick more than 5 documents in, but that's because each document is thousands of pages. If you're dealing with that, that'd be the answer. If you're dealing with more kind of dozens to maybe 100 pages or so, I would recommend probably no more than 15 to 20. And you can go more. The only reason I say that is, let me just show you. This view here, you eventually just reach geographic limits and borders. So if you were to drop in more documents that then could fit in this screen, you will get a scroll bar down here. You can keep scrolling over, but you do lose this unified view here. So that's not necessarily a memory limitation. It's more of a logistical limitation. So 15 to 20 would be a rough rule of thumb. I wouldn't really want to go too high above that. You can do it. I wouldn't recommend it. And like I said, always just create a new folder would be the other rule of thumb. So hopefully that answers the question. Good question. Excellent. Isa, yeah, good question. So let me share my screen again. So yeah, let's do this. Let me think. What example do I want to use? We'll do the resume one. That'll be a good one. So the question is, and when you do the directed search, does it pull up variations of the word? Yes. So let's use secret as an example. We'll show you secret security clearance, top secret security clearance, top secret SCI, plain Jane top secret. So the root search there is secret. We'll find any variation or iteration of the word. And so that's where you can be a bit creative, and it's a little bit more art than science in terms of, the more specific you get, the less items you're going to get. The more general you are, the more responses you get. So, quality is a fairly broad topic, and we can see quality management, quality control, quality assessments. So 10 themes identified versus, yeah, let's go with quality control. We're only getting one idea because we're being more specific. So that's kind of the Sturm and Drang there. And that's where discovery really shines compared to a dictionary-based lens like concept tracking. Good question. Keep them coming, guys. Really good.
Another one there from Susan.
Does that search result mean there are only 3 occurrences of the word security with none of the words next to it? Let me go back to that and just confirm. So we'll go back. We'll use security. Let me just clear the search. All right. So secret. And then Aoife, would you mind just reading the question off for me one more time so I don't share my own face?
Absolutely. So Susan asks, does that search result mean that there were only 3 occurrences of the word security with none of the other words next to it?
Okay, so yeah, let me see if this will. So what VisibleThread has done, searching for the idea of secret, we've found 7 themes. So that would be security, clearance, SCI, plain Jane, actually all cap secret here, top secret, clearable, SSBI. So, but you have 6 items across those themes because what's happening is you can have repeats. So secret security clearance is appearing here as a security theme, but it's also showing here as a clearance theme. So that's what that means. Hopefully that's clear as mud. So we're using kind of the root word there. So security is what we searched for, but because security is appearing here related to clearance, we call it out, and that's how we're grouping them. And then if you were to tally up all of these frequencies, that would give you the total number of times it appears across Blanche, Carmel, Eric, Frank, and Cabray's resumes. Any resume grayed out, the idea does not appear. That should answer the question, but give me a shout if not. Ooh, John, good question. Spoken like someone who attended a CAB meeting last week. What are the wildcards and other functions in the search? So for discovery, John, it's going to be, so security would be the idea. In discovery, you can't quite get into, show me anything. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that. One second. Cool. Okay, good. Believe it or not, sometimes I can talk too soon. It's rare, but I can do that. Okay, so excellent question, John. This kind of goes back to what I was referring to earlier in terms of how specific or how general you want to be. So a wild card would be VisibleThread. In this case, I didn't even search for clearance, the full word. I just searched for clearan, and that will show me clearance. If there was a plural, maybe clearances, it would show me all of those variations of the word. And there we go, clearances, clearance, clearance expiration. So you could even go to clear itself. And now clearable is called out, in addition to clearance, clearances, so on and so forth. So that would be your wild card. Show me anything literally that is clear, anything beginning with clear. Discovery will pick it up if there is an instance contained in these documents. Now, John was kind enough to tee me up. I will let the group know our next major product update. I won't give you an exact time to keep my engineers on my good side. It will be likely Q4. I'll say that. We're doing a lot of work with our dictionaries. For those who don't know, those sets of predetermined search terms, these are what I care about. I want to find them wherever they appear in one or more documents. Right now, it's the same idea. We can do verbatim searches and show me anything beginning with. But dropping later this year, we'll have the ability to drop in more wildcards, more pattern matching. VisibleThread, show me anything beginning with a B and ending with an L. Ball, bell, bill, bull, so on and so forth. You could also do show me anything. So like, ISO 9000, for instance. Maybe I don't know, or maybe there's variations of ISO. I can say VisibleThread, show me anything that begins all caps ISO followed by 4 digits. But I'm not going to specify what those digits are. I just know there's 4 digits following it. And that way we'll pick up ISO 9000, ISO 9001, so on and so forth. And that's an important feature. That'll be an important improvement. It's already in the pike. So that should answer the question, John. Really good one. Mimi, I like where your head's at. Absolutely. So the question is, so going back to that resume example, could you put the job description in the folder so that's it's the first document on the left and then the resumes are lined up alongside to the right? Absolutely. Wherever that document is and whatever format it's looking for, that's a great idea of alignment. This is my job description document, and I'm going to look for consistent hits across those resumes to the right. And if there's gaps, that might be a DQ. So that's where discovery, it's not even just the wording itself, it's that spatial analysis that's really important. So excellent. And so you're thinking about it, Mimi, just like my RFP, RFI lined up against my proposal response. It's the same mechanics and the same alignment, just different source docs. Good question. So yes, I would highly recommend that. Let me know how it goes. All right, really good questions, guys. I can't thank you enough. I'm more than capable of talking at you the whole time, but it's always good when you guys team me up this way. So thank you. So I'm just looking at a few other questions here. I think we've got them all addressed. So Tanner has a question. How does it return results for variations of the same word? For example, offerer versus offerers, apostrophe S. Same idea for contractors. Good question. So in that sense, Tanner, it's going to treat the apostrophe S as a new word. So let me show you what that looks like. So here, I'm just in a different document. I know it uses the word. So this is contractors apostrophe S. And so we're seeing contractors apostrophe S, and then any then kind of iteration or root of that. Contractors information, contractors in government, contractors performance. I won't say it again. Versus if we go back to the top, here's plain Jane contractor. And we're only going to see contractor, and it's treating that apostrophe S as a different word. Although actually, no, see, that's where you just got to test it, Kyle. There it is, contractors. So because it's starting with contractor, I actually already answered this earlier, so I tripped myself. It's starting with that, it's picking it up. So that's what it would look like. Contractor, contractors. Got there in the end. Good question. Okay, let's do this, Aoife. Gosh, time flies, you're having fun. So we've gone through that example, gone through the resume example, yep, or excuse me, proposals, resumes. And then guys, these slides will be provided just if you couldn't remember, hey, what was that use case? This is what we covered. This is why we call them out here via slides, creating that dictionary, the contracts example, yep, with some screenshots to help. Cool. So, and this is just kind of one, out of curiosity. Two, this is always helping my customer success team in terms of what examples, what use cases, what problems are most painful. So just curious to get the group's feedback here. Same thing, you can click directly on the slide of your answer. If you wouldn't mind, what did you think was the most interesting? Aoife, is this you must choose one, or is it like check all that apply? Just out of curiosity.
I think it's one, you must choose one. Yeah.
So you must choose one. We will force you to make a decision. But this would be an interesting, just kind of quality check for us. Excellent. So they're coming in. We'll just give it a few more seconds. I know this one, and hopefully people are thinking a little bit. You know, they're all powerful. I think some of it depends on job function. Some of it depends on industry. If you're not maybe so heavily into staffing or kind of key personnel type efforts, the resumes might not be quite as relevant as, you know, I'm a capture manager looking for win themes or discriminators in my proposal lined up against an RFP. So yeah, I don't think there's any right or wrong answer, but yeah, just always curious what really stuck out to the group.
In the meantime, Carl, another question's just come in there from Greg, if you want to take a look.
How do you modify a dictionary based on discovery? Excellent question, Greg. So let me just kind of set the mechanics, and we'll talk about how you can do that. So what you can't do is take an existing dictionary and like drop it into discovery and tweak it. However, there's always a however with me for people that know me. Remember, when we're creating those views to create dictionaries, you've saved that search. So in this folder, I already have 6 views saved. So let's see, we'll just use this view. And I did this view a long time ago. These were the ideas I pulled out. And you can create a dictionary from that view. Let's assume we've already done that. But now I want to update that dictionary. You could just go back into your folder, identify that view. Here it is right now, 9 themes, and I'm going to add to it. And just for the sake of time, I want to add sensitive information to my view. So now I'm going to save it. I'm updating my view. Now I have 9 themes as opposed to 8. There's that sensitive information. And you can create a dictionary again automatically. And I'm just going to call it V1. Create. Really, really good question. And I like, Greg, how you're thinking about that, because ultimately, as we know, good dictionaries do change over time. And you don't have to always start from scratch. So just remember those views. That's your existing dictionary, add to it, save, create new dictionary, V1, V2, etc. Excellent question. Okay. And that actually gave a lot of people time to answer the question. So let's take a look. What was most helpful? Interesting. So I'm not allowed to have favorites. I think this is one of my favorites. Also, when I'm working with other user groups, I hear a lot of this, looking for those gaps. I'm also happy to hear that people were really resonating with creating a dictionary. My best users create dictionaries. Let discovery do the heavy lifting. Excellent. And the other one that I hear about, we didn't do it today. I've done it before. And I'll kind of tie it to that looking for gaps and inconsistencies in your proposals. I work with a lot of user groups that use discovery to look for past proposal content to borrow and to recycle. They'll line up the RFP they're pursuing right now against past proposal docs, and same idea. Where have I spoken to similar ideas before? I can steal that information, repurpose it, retool it. I hear a lot of that. But no, really interesting feedback here, guys. We'll take that under consideration. Good stuff. Contracts breaks my heart a bit as a contracts manager. I'm just assuming there's no contracts people on the line besides me. Excellent. Okay. So that's it. Time flies. So if there's any other questions, I'll hang around, but can't thank the group enough for attending. I know it's a busy time of year. So thanks for your time. Hope you found this helpful. You will receive a recording. You will receive the slides. Our next, actually, there's more slides, aren't there? Never assume. So here are some helpful links. Just quick how-to videos. If you don't want to go back through this hour-long webinar, these are quick, bite-sized. How do I use discovery? Always, when in doubt, VT University is your friend. There'll be a link to that. You can enroll. It's free to enroll. And you can jump right to the discovery. You don't have to take the courses in order. I mean, I recommend that you do. But you can just jump straight to discovery if you want. Hey, that was cool. I want a refresher on it. And then always, right, this is what we talked about. And then plug for my team. Ideally, everyone here knows their customer success manager. If you don't, or if you think, gee, I have a question, I'd like it answered by a real live person, you can click on this handy link here and you can meet with either me or an illustrious member of my team. We are here to answer these types of questions and make sure that people are quite dangerous when they use VisibleThread. And so these webinars are also just a part of that goal of ours. So, Aoife, I think, unless there's anything else I've missed, I'll hand it back over to you.
Thanks, Kyle. I'll just let you all know that our next webinar will take place on the 17th of August. And this webinar is more of a VT Writer focus. So you'll learn how to use watchwords in VT Writer. It'll be a 30-minute webinar, and we'll show you how watchwords assist you in assessing the clarity of your content through the inclusion of your verbal style guide. So that's it from my side. Thank you to everybody for attending our training webinar today, and we really look forward to seeing you at the next one. Thank you.
Thanks.